Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch, and today we are gonna finally make this place not a disaster. You guys have been watching for the last few months, noticed that it kept getting more and more and more cluttered. And I just can't stand it anymore. The reason for that was we were in the process of purchasing a new shop, and unfortunately that has gone completely sideways, become a nightmare, and is probably not gonna happen. So we're gonna have to pivot a little bit. We're still gonna find a new place, but we were supposed to move a couple weeks ago, and obviously we haven't. So we need to really make this place work for at least another month or two. And right now it just doesn't. If you've been around long enough to catch when I built the shop at the ranch, and even longer if you saw us at AutoLink, our dealership many years ago, you kind of know that I'm a little more particular than it appears right now. We always had a clean and tidy place, and this is definitely not it. We got too many Rovers, too many Rover parts for the size we have. We have 1,800 square feet under the roof of the car wash, with an additional 320 square feet of storage in the container, and we really need 3,000 plus square feet to make things work, but we're gonna attempt to make things better. Better is better than worse, something like that. It's just very counterproductive working on the LR4 truck and the lightweight when we spend half our time pushing stuff around so we can work on the LR4 truck and the lightweight. So I really need to get a handle on this place. I don't know, it's just gotten out of control the last couple months. We got Land Rover engines here, Land Rover transmissions there, more Land Rover engines, more Land Rover engines, Land Rover engine, Land Rover engine. Why not a Maserati engine? A fresh looking lightweight chassis, LR4 truck. We really need to get working on those, but before we do that, we need to get a handle on everything and get everything at least somewhat organized. These conditions aren't really conducive to getting anything accomplished. So I think we're gonna dedicate this first shelf, or at least this one right there, to some extra lightweight parts. These are the ones that I'm not quite using at the moment. Some of this stuff won't get used on the lightweight, but we need to keep it until we're running and driving, just in case. Up top, I think we can throw something up top that would really free up some room. This one's gonna be slightly more interesting getting up there. We'll move this down. At least you guys will be able to watch me shatter this into a million pieces. That ain't going nowhere. Just having that Discovery cab up there makes a world of difference on what we're working with down below. It at least gives us enough room to start getting some more shelves up. We'll just kind of keep working our way down. Eventually we're gonna have to move the C10, but there's a few things blocking that from happening at the moment. So we're starting to almost actually have a pathway to work with here so we can get some of that stuff moved over. But while we were loading the shelves, Ted just swung by and dropped off one of his spare fuel tanks. Or I guess it's not really a tank, it's more of a fuel colander. But no, while we had it sitting there, I just wanted to show the ingenuity of someone who owned the lightweight in the past. Battery tray, fuel tank, cut fuel tank here, weld stuff on, and you got a battery tray. And now neither of these are gonna be used on the lightweight, but it will be nice to have an actual OEM template to build our new fuel cell off of. See, the Eco's always good for something. Today, shade. Which is quite the departure from last week where we got what felt like 17.5 inches of rain. Today, sun. Apparently too much sun for Chet. Just look at how shiny that guy is. But no, it is cleaner. It is 100% too glossy, but it is cleaner. The glossiness on here is gonna be less annoying once we have body panels put back on and you don't get to see just the chassis, but that is the one downfall of Poor 15, or at least in my opinion. But well worth the trade-off to have a nice protected chassis. That is a good starting point to reassemble with. Maybe someday we'll do a galvanized chassis for the lightweight if it hangs around long enough. Now hopefully the Maserati engine fits underneath here, because that's what I measured, and my intention was to have this slide under on the cart. And of course it does. I can use a tape measure. Now somehow we just need to fit 1, 2, 3 more engines, 1, 2, 3 transmissions. Somehow that math doesn't math. I mean, we do have another section, a shelf to put up, but it is getting better though. The only thing that frightens me about that is I tend to fill up empty space. So I need to work on myself more than I need to work on organization. This one's really the engine that's been buggering everything up. This is the 2 1/4 that we pulled out of the lightweight. I stuck it on a cart that is rated for 1,000 pounds. It obviously isn't rated for 1,000 pounds the way I loaded it, but it happened to break right in front of the door to the office, which, as you would guess, is pretty inconvenient. So this being out of the way makes life simpler, or once it's out of the way, it'll make life simpler. I don't know what we're gonna ultimately do with this one, but it's a good running guy, so hate to just get rid of it. I will give that old Harbor Freight wheel dolly a little bit of a break though, because these 2 1/4s are far heavier than one would think. Like, as in, they probably weigh more than a Rover V8 does. Now we'll just have to get this close and slide it in there. I'd throw it on another dolly, but I seem to have broken every single one. Change of plans. I Frankensteined that dolly that we split with the 2 1/4 back together. I mean, that's the finest quality woodworking you've ever seen with the finest quality wood that's been sitting outside for a year. But I didn't want to wrestle this thing under there by hand, so I guess we'll just make whatever this is work. I'm sure that's a permanent solution for this. It obviously rolls so well too. I may have to swing the transmission out, swing this in. Like a glove. So since we're creating so much room over here with all those engines getting put away, we need to take a break because we're bidding on something. We just got outbid. 6 minutes left for that. As they say, I need that like I need another hole in my head. But also, I mean, I'm not gonna win. I'm gonna get outbid because I'm not gonna go as heavy as I would like to, because we don't have the room to put it anywhere. If I got that one, this one would probably have to go down the road. Why not, I guess. Realistically, I think that's my limit on it right now. It's worth a lot more. Obviously, someone just outbid me, and it probably won't hit reserve anyways, but it would be cool. But we need to remember what's sitting right in front of me. Okay, I lied. We did one more. Okay, this guy's jumping, $5 grand a pop. He wants it. He knows what it's worth. Different time, different place. Or if I had the new place, maybe we would go after it, but I don't even have any room to stick another 6-wheel Land Rover, do I? Do I? Should I? No, we shouldn't. Well, I'm glad it went high enough to actually sell. Where it was sitting before, I was pretty sure it was going to be reserve not met, but it's cool, it's changing hands. Hopefully that guy enjoys it. But now that we got a short intermission, we should probably get back to doing something worthwhile, not daydreaming. So we have one more section of shelf to put up, but that's gonna require moving the C10. It's a little close to the wall at the moment. So we're gonna slide this forward, then we can kind of jockey some stuff behind it. I'm hoping underneath that shelf, we can stick our 2 transmissions we have, or at least get most of that under there. The 3.5 on the other broken pallet is gonna go in our little engine cart as soon as we put the TDI back into the lightweight chassis. which we'll be able to do this afternoon, hopefully. Feels good to have a little bit more room in the shop. We'll just kind of squeeze back here. See if we can sneak this one in here. Perfect. I don't think I can even express at how much better this makes me feel. That chaotic mess was stressing me out. It's still somewhat of a mess, but we're a little more organized on this end. We got quite a bit more to go over there, but I think at this point we can get the lightweight chassis back in, tucked away over here. With this tucked back on that side, we can swing that 200 TDI back into place, which will then let us put that other V8 on the engine cart, and we're just cracking along. See, we're getting more organized and making progress on the lightweight. It's almost like I should do this every week. You know, it's kind of a cool little corner now. It almost looks proper with the backdrop of a bunch of Rover parts and an oddball Maserati engine. So we are officially going back together for the last time, at least the last time for this current rendition of the lightweight. Now we're gonna get the 200 TDI stuck in. Theoretically, this should just set right into place, even though I have it rigged up wrong. You know, well prepared as usual. Stay put. Of course, it rolls when you don't want it to roll. I mean, pretty much ready to drive at this point, right? This is the last thing we'll stick on the lightweight today. And we're doing that because once this is in place, we can start wiring up the engine and getting that all set to go. And I can keep setting this on a tire and expecting it to stay for some reason. It's not going to though. I'm just that type of person. Stubborn. Kind of set that on. That's going to hold us into place. That actually didn't go all that terrible. Get some of the brace bolts slid in so we can loosely line this guy up. There we go. We're not going to lock this guy down until we're ready to put the rest of the body on. But this is going to allow us to get the engine hoist out of the way, which will let us take this over and get that 3.5 Rover onto the engine cart. But more importantly, we'll be able to start sorting out all the wiring, get the engine harness hooked up. There's not a whole lot that goes to that, which is going to make this pretty easy, all things considering. So that's our next steps. We're gonna get the engine harness hooked up. We need to get the clutch slave cylinder hooked up. That is non-existent at the moment because it was converted to automatic. So that's a little bit of a hurdle to tackle. We'll get the brakes sorted out. There is some leaking happening in the wheel cylinder location up front on both sides. So what I'll do is get a hold of Ted and have him give me a hand. It is much easier to tackle bleeding the brakes on stuff like this with two people versus one because I don't have the correct setup to pressurize one of the old series trucks and do it solo. But we'll blow the brakes apart and get that sorted out. Just kind of doing a mental checklist on what's next. We need to properly hook the steering up, wiring, then we can start throwing everything together. I want to get the front end into place, then we can map out our charge pipes and order an intercooler. I'm not quite sure what size intercooler I want yet. I'm not even quite sure what radiator I'm using yet. I got a couple options on this one, but what a lovely sight to see. This guy should start ticking back together pretty quick. We're gonna bounce around between this and the LR4 truck, keep things interesting in my mind, going back and forth. We do have some wiring to tackle. Down in there, I probably should have did this before I put the bulkhead on, but we need to put a connector on the harness that is run through the chassis, or a connector on each end that goes to the taillights, and it was just hardwired across. So I want to make it so the box or the rear tub is easy to lift off without having to cut it and splice it every time. So that'll just add a little serviceability. There's a couple other points in the harness that will add connectors just to make life easier. And then in one of these boxes, we have a bunch of loom. So once we fire the engine up, we'll loom everything out. Before I took it apart, before I took the Buick V6 out, everything did work, even like turn signals and stuff, headlights. So it should all work again. We kept the fuel gauge sender out of the tank that was mounted in the tub in the back. So when we make our new fuel tank for this side, we will use that. And we should be able to have all that working as well. Make a little cover for this guy once it's all done, tidy everything up. So the lightweight should come together pretty quick on that end of things. And we're just about cleared out up front here. It's been a pretty good couple days around this joint. So we just have one engine left to sort out, and this is the Behemoth. I don't exactly know what I'm gonna do with this. I don't know why I'm keeping it around. It was kind of out in the elements for a little bit, so I should just tear some stuff off and kind of part this one out and get rid of it. Obviously not a desirable transmission, but either way, at this very point in time, we need to get it off. What is another broken little dolly cart situation. Story of my life. All right, we're gonna have to reposition this once we get it off the cart. We just couldn't do anything with it. Have it sitting on the cart. Well, maybe not. It's actually sitting all right. Yep, that guy definitely didn't make it. We got a cluster going on as per usual. I guess that's one way to do it. Gravity always seems to find a way. Now we can at least roll that one out of the way when we need to. We got the R380s tucked over out of the way. Up in front of the hoist is looking awful clear. And this is just making me feel pretty good. That was probably the biggest stressor in my life, was the chaotic mess going on in here. And at least we have a little bit of a wrangle on it now. I got a couple other things to put away, and thankfully we actually have a little bit of room left on the shelf for when we need to tuck some other stuff back there as we go. And this stuff laying around is gonna start going on the lightweight, so it should clear up some more room. And once the lightweight is a little more assembled, we'll go ahead and move the X-Mod out of the way of that door, because at that point the lightweight will be able to turn 90 degrees and we'll just be able to pull it in and out of the shop there, and that'll be kind of its home until we find our new place. But for now, we at least have a little bit of a proper work area for it with some room around it. I actually have paths to walk. I feel like much less of a hoarder, like, you know, the ones that they do the intervention TV show with, where you barely can walk through the house. That's what it was getting to be like around here, but look at so much room. Now, it's been a few months since I've seen the majority of this workbench top, but man, I am just smitten with how much we organized everything on this side of the shop over here. That shelf setup behind the lightweight really made a big difference. Now, I didn't do that earlier because it kind of buggers up being able to put 4 cars across that side of the shop. As you can see, we have to push the C10 out to where it is encroaching on the hoist area. And unless we had nothing but series and short wheelbase Defenders, it just wouldn't work. So we wouldn't have been able to put the LR4 truck next to the lightweight like we had it stored before. But I'm gonna call this a productive couple days. It kind of bought us a little space and a little bit of time until we find our new place. Ultimately, we need a new place. The 1,800 square feet that we have underneath the roof here just isn't quite enough for what we have going on now. I do need to kind of pare down a little bit of what we have laying around for Rovers, mainly just the ones that we don't plan on doing anything with. But even if I got rid of 5, 6, 7, 8 of them, 1,800 square feet is just not enough. But nonetheless, we're at least able to get some more stuff accomplished, and this frees us up some room so we can really make some true progress on the lightweight and the LR4 truck without spending half a day rearranging everything each time we go to work on them. I truly was probably wasting 10 hours a week moving stuff around when I was hopping between projects. So it just wasn't working. But now we're gonna be in good shape, and even better yet, we kind of have a little more organization for when we do move. It's gonna be easy to just kind of launch everything onto a trailer and just get it moved without having to sort through it and work our way around stuff. Sometimes organizing and cleaning up feels like a waste of time, but it truly is worth its time spent. But with that being said, appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you subscribing. We have a lot of stuff coming up here in the short future, and it should be interesting. Next week, like a week from today, is when Roverball 2026 starts. That is the second rendition of Roverball. It is from Wisconsin to Texas. So excited to catch up and see some of those guys. And if you haven't checked it out yet, and you're along the route, hop in, say hi to all the Rovers traveling from Wisconsin to Texas. It's not quite the same as last year where it was coast to coast. This is kind of going north to south. Cool, that's getting switched up. And if you made it this far into the video, I'm guessing you kind of have a somewhat of an interest in what's going on around here, not just Rover related. Earlier today, had to do a little volunteer work. Well, didn't have to. That sounded terrible. I did a little volunteer work for a nonprofit that I'm a part of that kind of helps out a state park around here. And this morning we had a little booth set up at our locals farmers market, and it was kind of a blast. They have one spot each week for a local nonprofit, and this week was ours. And in the back of the Range Rover here, we got some cool stuff. Yes, that is a bunch of pelts or furs of what is kind of native species to the park that we help out, and that is skunk, bobcat, badger. There's a wolf in there. There's a mountain lion, badger. I don't know if I said badger, but all sorts of cool stuff. I'm only mentioning this because a little bit later this year, I may devote a percentage of a month's of merch sales towards that nonprofit. I'm on the board for it, and this year our big thing is we are redoing the interpretive center, our educational center. A bunch of the regional schools around here have field trips out there, and we help fund some of the bus transportation for those, and we're going to make sure this is a very cool educational display that kind of tells the history of how this area in Iowa started, how we affected the land, and how the land affected us. And it's going to be kind of a cool little story, and there's going to be a little bit of a merch lineup revamp, so I'm going to try and coincide that if you guys want to help out with helping the kids learn. We'll talk about that in the future. That's just a tiny bit of what goes on outside of the Land Rovers. But Iowa is kind of one of the worst states in the country when it comes to funding public land, so we just want to try and make sure that we keep this thing going. If it wasn't for groups like this pocketed throughout the state, a lot of these parks would just kind of go to waste and not get used. So we're going to try and do what we can to help out.